Welcome again to another edition of our virtual Dell Music Lounge. We want to thank Dell Technologies. Our lounge is presented by Wild Basin Hard Seltzer and supported by Torchy's Tacos and Clean Cause. We welcome to our virtual Dell Music Lounge Semisonic. Dan Wilson and the band are here with us. You're Not Alone is the EP. It's their first new music in 20 years. We'll talk with Dan in a few, but first, live from Parts Unknown, Semisonic.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Closing time, open all the doors and let you out into the world. Closing time, turn all of the lights on over every boy and every girl. Closing time, one last call for alcohol, so finish your whiskey or beer. Closing time, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. I know I want to take me home. I know I want to take me home. I know I want to take me home. Take me home. Closing time. Time for you to go out to the places you will be from. Closing time. This room won't be open till your brothers or your sisters come. So gather up your jackets, move it to the exits. I hope you have found a friend. Closing time. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. Yeah. I know I want to take me home. I know I want to take me home. I know I want to take me home. Take me home. Closing time. Time for you to go out to the places you will be from. I know I want to take me home. I know I want to take me home. I know I want to take me home. Take me home. I know I want to take me home. I know I want to take me home. I know I want to take me home. Take me home. Closing time. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end.
Semisonic in our virtual Dell Music Lounge, joined here by Dan Wilson. Welcome and thank you. So there is this 20-year gap between records. In the meantime, you make solo records. You write with the Chicks and Taylor Swift and Adele. Did the writing part of those last 20 years help you identify what it was that made Semisonic different and special? Did it help point out what was singular about Semisonic?
Maybe that's a good question, because my gut reaction is that writing with other people and learning how to make musical things that would make sense for other people to sing. I mean, obviously an amazing experience for me, but I think it might have actually kind of muddied the waters as far as my simple clarity of what Semisonic is. You know, I think it might have, confused is the wrong word, but I might have gotten sort of too broad a perspective for a while to do the band justice with new songs, and it took me a while to get that back.
Was there a sense that Semisonic might have been a time and place thing that you needed to move beyond and had to get back into a headspace where it was even a consideration?
How it worked was, I mean, it's been wonderful and interesting for me to revisit the band and try to figure out how to be that guy in the band. And one of my kind of, I always have some sort of manifesto or sort of mission for recordings or things that I work on. And one of the main missions I told the guys when we started was, we're not going to try to update anything. We're just going to use the natural passage of time and whatever we've done in the meanwhile to do the updating for us. And we're not going to consciously figure out how to sound more modern or more current or, more 2020. And similarly, I think when I started writing for writing Semisonic songs again, probably late 2017 maybe, or somewhere during that year, it was more like a natural rediscovery. I had thought hard about what it might take, but that didn't help. Like, I know that the band has a kind of melancholy, but there's this kind of glowy optimism in the sound. Well, I didn't know how to do that on a conscious level anyway. So I almost needed to just wait until I found a way to get back in the mood and do it naturally as opposed to try to scheme it out.
I wouldn't have blinked an eye if you didn't play Closing Time for us. I would have thought that to be perfectly natural for you not to play it. Over time, has your relationship to that song changed and evolved? And was there a time where it was more of a curse than a blessing?
I'm in some ways like I'm a spacey artist, and I'm I've check all the check marks of artist type, but I'm also really pretty practical, and I could tell relatively early that Closing Time was going to be bigger than Semisonic. Like, once maybe 6 months had passed, and I was like, okay, our audience is not going to be the size of this song's audience. And I didn't really know what to do about it. I could just kind of tell. But it never occurred to me to be mad that we would have to play it at every gig, for example. I love the song. I think it's amazing. I really do love it. And so when I talk to people who consider their biggest song some kind of curse or millstone around their neck or whatever, drag sail, I'm fine with them having that feeling, but I just don't relate. I love what that song has done in my life, and I think the guys probably feel similarly.
You were a piece of one of my favorite songs ever, Not Ready to Make Nice, from the Chicks. What do you remember about particularly the part about the death threat, where it goes into that, the I better shut up and sing or my life will be over?
Yeah. When we wrote that song, we had gotten together the day before. The Chicks and I had gotten together the day before, and we wrote another song called "It's So Hard When It Doesn't Come Easy." And I love that song, and we had a very funny time. But we had a lot of discussion about the
situation,
ups and downs, their situation, all those euphemistic words, the incident,
Right.
And we. So we had kind of talked through a lot of that, and it was very surreal, I guess, for me to talk with someone about death threats that they had received. It was so effing deep and terrible, that it completely was different than reading about it in the paper. So-and-so got a death threat. Well, we don't care. Like, none of us care. Then someone you're talking to and having fun and laughing with says, "Oh, we're getting death threats all the time." It's a very, very different experience. And for them, obviously, insane how different that must have been. But when we were even talking about that, I didn't feel, I wasn't going to propose any lines of lyrics about that myself. But when we wrote that bridgey thing in the song, which is a wonderful part of the music, I wrote, based on just a discussion we had, I wrote that thing, I made my bed and I sleep like a baby with no regrets, and I don't mind saying. And then I think maybe I said, I don't mind saying it's a sad, sad story when a mother will teach her daughter. And then we were writing that together, like those lines together. I started it, and we got about halfway through that section, and then I took a break. I don't know, I went to the bathroom or something. I went out onto the balcony and like stood there and looked out on Santa Monica Boulevard. And when I came back, Natalie was looking at her computer, and earlier in the day she had been looking at her computer, and I said, you got any lyrics? Are you working on lyrics? And she goes, no. And she turned the computer around, and it was a bunch of shoes on a website. She said, I'm shopping for shoes. So I came back in from my little break, and I said, so Natalie, do you find any good shoes? And she goes, no, I think I got the rest of that bridge. And then she sang it all the way to how in the world can the things that I said send somebody so over the edge they'd write me a letter and say that I'd better shut up and sing or my life will be over. And we all just like, in fact, I'm having it right now, like my hair is standing on end right now. We all just were like, because it started out with a joke. I'm like, did you find any good shoes? And then she read us this thing, and it was like, okay, that is your story to tell. Like, I could never have offered that lyric because it's so scary. But when she said it, we were like, oh my God, this is actually amazing.
There's so much uncertainty right now. We're in a pandemic. There's post-election trauma. What makes you hopeful?
Genes, my genetics. I don't know. I think I have a hopeful gene in there somewhere. I have some hopefulness that I think might sound irritating, but I for example, when I was a kid, my dad used to argue with my mom's mom about politics. And she was like a stone cold racist, like way, very intense, like a cartoon of racist people in the, civil rights era. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not nothing subtle about it.
I live in Texas.
She loved to argue. So she would bait my dad and bait him until finally he would just like take the bait, and then they'd have these huge fights. And my siblings and I would cower. Like we really didn't. We were too little to like. We didn't weigh in or have opinions. We just like, while this epic conflict was going on. And I think later in her life, she had some changes of heart that were very interesting and very human. And I think the world between then and now has changed in lots and lots of ways. And I think some of those ways are really, really positive. I'm kind of hopeful because I've seen a lot, I mean, a lot of things about 2020 just suck. It's terrible. But there've been terrible years in the past, and better years have come out of it. And there are wonderful people out there working really, really hard to make the future better, and like really hard. And that gives me a lot of hope.
All right. Well, Dan Wilson, thank you for doing this. If we could, we're going to go to one more performance in this virtual Dell Music Lounge with Semisonic.
1, 2, 3, 4. Everybody knows that the world is wrong. The only thing to do is write it a song. That's one way to take a wrong and make it all right. Drink up your time, take a pill for the pain. Come out of the dark and in from the rain. I want to see your face in the glow of the firelight. The water's warm. I know one ever told you life was long and believed it. Even if I don't get what I need tonight, sometimes the complexity gets a little complex. But other times it's easy as baking a pie, falling off a log and live until you die. What could even be the point if we knew what comes next? The water's warm, and no one ever told you life was long. And believed it, you've always known there's someone out there watching as you go. Just a feeling you're not alone. You're not alone. Dance, love, pray to the beat. Make a little poem you can sing in the street. Who you gonna believe, the TV or your beating heart? Wanna fight the power or tell it the truth? Maybe take the fight to the voting booth. Sharpen your senses, cause you're gonna have to see in the dark. The water's warm, and no one ever told you life was long. And believed it, you always know there's someone out there watching as you go. Just a feeling you're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone.
There they are, Semisonic in our virtual Dell Music Lounge. Our thanks to Semisonic and Dan Wilson, and to Dell Technologies. While Basin Hard Seltzer presents our virtual Dell Music Lounge with support from Torchy's Tacos and Clean Cause. You'll find more recent virtual Dell Music Lounges with Matt Mason, Taylor Goldsmith of Dawes, Steve Earle, the Black Pumas, and more over at acl-radio.com or on our Facebook page. Thank you, and thank you, Dan Wilson. Hopefully next time we get to do this in person.
It was a pleasure, and yes, I agree. Next time.